This morning I went for a walk around the neighborhood. I was in a hurry, so I skipped my morning constitutional and decided to take my morning stroll instead. It was cold outside, so I bundled up in my winter coat and hat and gloves. I was headed for the grocery store when I realized that I hadn't bought a newspaper for 2 weeks. I would have to stop by the corner newsstand to pick up one. I walked on toward the market and on the way noticed a pair of shoes that looked familiar. They were black leather shoes with tassels, size 80, and they looked just like my wife's shoes. I stopped dead in my tracks and stared down at them. I had never seen these shoes before in my life. I looked up and there, coming toward me, was my wife, dressed in her bathrobe. She smiled at me and asked how my day was going. She asked me if I wanted to come into the house and make us coffee and then a breakfast with her. She said that I looked cold. I replied, yes, my old man's day, and turned to go on my way. I am not really sure why this happened to me, but it is what happened, and I didn't feel like I was in the Twilight Zone or anything. And then later that evening, I got a phone call from my wife, asking me to come over right away. She said that she was very sick. When I arrived, she looked terrible. Her face was swollen and puffy, and she looked like she had the flu. She was moaning and crying and trying to tell me that she was dying. I held her in my arms and tried to console her. She cried out, I am so cold. Help me, Daddy, please help me. I want my mother. And then I saw it. The shoes. My wife had the same pair of black leather shoes on her feet, with tassels on the toes. The same ones that I had seen 2 blocks from the grocery store on Old Man's Day. I pulled her close to me, kissed her, and said that everything was going to be all right. I held her in my arms for an hour and just kept saying, I am here. It is going to be all right. But it wasn't. My wife died shortly after I arrived at the hospital. A few days later I received a bill for $1,200 for the treatment of her illness. When I called the hospital and asked them about it, they told me that it had been diagnosed as pneumonia, although they didn't know what caused it, or why it had spread so rapidly in her case. But there was another bill for $200 that I received later for cremation services. I went to the funeral director, who told me that the ashes had been contaminated with mercury, which he claimed had been present in the tassels on the shoes. He also said that I had better not open the box containing the ashes because it might have mercury in it too. I've never worn the shoes since that day on Old Man's Day, and I've never had any reason to. But now that I think back about it, I realize that those shoes were probably responsible for my wife's death, even though there was nothing wrong with them when they were on her feet. I was talking to my sister-in-law about all this, and she said that maybe the tassels had been poisoned by the mercury that was contained in the fish that we ate at dinner that night. Maybe they were poisoned by the mercury in the tuna salad that she served us. Maybe they were poisoned by the mercury in the hot dogs that she served us. Maybe they were poisoned by the mercury in the beer that we drank. Maybe they were poisoned by the mercury in the mercury that we breathed in while we slept. I don't know if any of these things are true or not. I have no proof. All I know is that I miss my wife very much and wish she could have lived longer. And I wish that I could have done something about it.